Today I'm speaking with Paul Hartel from Los Angeles, California, about his very long and colourful association with Alan Wilson, Barham Brackett, and Britain's hidden history. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, welcome, Paul. It's nice to see you. Very happy to see you.
It's a real pleasure to see you too. And can you give us a brief pen picture about yourself?
Sure. Well, my professional background is in the entertainment arts. I'm based in the United States. I'm in Los Angeles. I got my start as an actor on the East Coast. I'm from the East Coast. And I was in New York for a number of years before I moved to Los Angeles. And all those years were devoted to acting. I came out west in the late 90s. And shortly after that, I transitioned behind the camera. And that's been my primary focus, although not exclusively. I still do act. But I primarily am a film and television editor. I spent about 8 years working for NBC. I freelanced for different networks, cable networks, principally working on a lot of like discovery shows. So that's what I principally do now. I'm right in the middle of wrapping out a feature film edit. So I'm in like my last week of that right now. And that's principally what I focus my energy on. But yeah, so that's my story personally.
Well, that's a tremendous pedigree. So how did you get involved with Alan Wilson and Barham Brackett then?
Well, I've always been a King Arthur fan, and ever since I was a child, I read the T.H. White book, and then I read Howard Pyle had over here in the States. I'm sure they published these books in England as well, the UK as well. But like The Boy's King Arthur, I read as a very young boy, and then T.H. White, and then I moved on to Mallory, and then Geoffrey of Monmouth, and then I was reading the Geoffrey Ashe when he was doing his explorations in the 60s. He published a couple books about his excavations at Cadbury. And so I've always been interested in it. And in the early 2000s, I mean, very early 2000s, I was working at NBC. So I was very busy, but I came across a copy of The Holy Kingdom that they wrote with Adrian Gilbert, and my imagination just, caught fire again, and my passion was reignited. And I reached out to them, tracked them down, and got hold of them, and we started emailing back and forth. In those days, they still were active on email.
Yeah.
And I arranged some trips over. My goal was to produce a documentary. So I made trips over. The first couple trips, I just came myself with and just had a small little DV camera at the time. This was, almost 20 years ago now, I guess, really very close to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I was just filming myself, just shooting whatever little bit, I would grab a few times. I would, put the camera on a tripod or on a wall or something if we were out visiting sites, and try to grab stuff that I knew as an editor I would want to put together into a presentation piece that we would show to the networks.
Yeah.
So this was in the early 2000s. And I know I shared it. It seems like a good time. I know I shared it with Ross in the past. but this might be a good time to share it again, and I will share the screen and we can watch the trailer for, it's not the greatest quality. We can watch the trailer for what I called Hidden History.
Right.
So it wasn't exclusively Britain's hidden history. It was just the series. This was going to be a series focused exclusively on Britain's hidden history, mostly around the King Arthur myth. I say myth, but I'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
But anyway, let me share the screen and we can share with other members. Desktop.
You think thousands of years ago people knew what this was? Of course now we've forgotten it all. Good Lord, was buried there? And inside that chamber is the Ark of the Covenant.
There's something here.
I'm standing in front of the tree-covered mound of Taurus. Another one of the star maps on the ground.
There's a story about a treasure of a mountain of gold. Is this it?
But that's something else that can be investigated, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's really tried to do that.
Hi, I'm Paul Hartel, and I'm in Butte Park at the remains of a Blackfriars cemetery from the Middle Ages that was actually built next to a much older church from the Dark Ages.
The English, we don't
I
mind,
think you can get over it. It's just...
X marks the spot. Bingo, we've got it.
Good. I just want to do something that I hadn't done before. I'm just going to click through this.
Yep.
And talk about a few of the areas. Now, right here, this first part was Alan and I and some others. We had traveled. I couldn't tell you where this is anymore.
Right.
But in the Mabinogi, it talks about some areas on a mountaintop where there's like there's three different I can't even remember now, but in any case, Alan and Barham had found the areas that the map, that they were talking about in the Mabinogi, and this is one of the, we didn't really even know what it was. Alan honestly couldn't tell me what it was, except he thought it was astronomical in a way, in the same way that we've got the three mounds on that represent Orion.
Yep.
On the one mountain. This Alan felt represented something similar. So he took me up there, but he didn't honestly, he couldn't be sure, certainly at that time, what anything was. Now this actually, I'll wait and show you. This, of course, is up on Two in a Glow.
Yeah.
And then this is, and now I'm blanking. We've talked about this before because we've had an opportunity to chat a few times, but this, when we go through the still pictures, we
Yeah.
can.
That's down at Ogmore, and we were wondering
Yeah,
if it's
that's
still
right.
there.
That's at Ogmore, right?
Yeah. And I think it is still there. Looking at photos I took 4 years ago, that was
Yeah.
in. So I think that's the copy, isn't it?
Yes, I think that's the replica of the original stone. I don't know what's happened to the original stone. Now, of course, that's Alan Hassel, and I'm having trouble with this monitor now. It's clicking out on me. Let it come back. And then, of course, there's Alan. We were staying at some friend's house in Wales, or we were visiting in any way. But there's Alan and me, and we're going over some maps, talking about where we're going to go. And then, now this is Adrian Gilbert. Now, this is me with Adrian Gilbert, which I shot at a later time when I came back, and I went and saw Adrian and visited Adrian, and we went out. And this is, of course, when at Caermelin with Alan. I've got some still pictures of him on the site. But this little clip is just to show some of the rise. When we go to the still pictures of the site, we'll get a better idea. And this, of course, is near Mathern. This is, I just called it the Well of Souls. I sort of hyped it up for the trailer, but it is the spring where they stopped. I remembered that I had called it the Well of Tears, but I don't know. I guess I changed my mind at some point and changed the name of it. Who knows? It's a little hype. And then this, of course, is in Butte Park.
Yep.
And we've talked about this before. And this is, these are the Dark Age foundations of the original church that the friars built their much bigger monastery next to. This is just, and that's actually Chris Barber. I also visited with Chris Barber, so at a later date as well, and just to get his take, and we walked around. But anyway, so yeah, this was originally where they thought he had been buried, and as we've, it's again with me with Adrian. So and then of course this is another shot of Two in a Glow. I may have been one of the last folks, and then this up here is of course St. Peter's Supermontum. But I may have been one of the last folks to actually be able to wander around on top of the place of worship. As
I think you might be right. There's a friend of mine, he's taken a part-time job delivering for people like the local supermarkets, and he delivered to the Brothers Farm by the sound of it. And knowing this history from the same sort of period as you encountered it, then my friend asked about Tinaglow, and they said it's theirs and nobody's going up there.
Right.
They categorically told him it's a no-go area from now on.
Yeah.
Has been for a while. Has been for a while.
Well, you know, I hold on a minute. Let me stop sharing my screen. Yeah, I don't see. Let's see if I can. I don't see the, oh, stop right here. Here it is. We don't need to, for the moment, we'll stop. Yeah, that was actually one of my concerns. because I had met them before they published Moses in the hieroglyphs. And I really wasn't keen on them sharing some of that story, because I knew I was concerned. I'm always concerned about nighthawks,
Yeah.
as we call them, right? And so I did not want to give away actual locations in many cases, and certainly not about something like that. So I don't know that I regret terribly at this time anyway, the brothers, because it's a pair of brothers, I think, who own the farm, because we did go and we actually talked to them. We drove and visited them. I can remember thinking at the time, I had never seen such large and ferocious sheepdogs as they had. You would not want to be run down by those dogs.
No.
I mean, they were monstrous,
And they're fast as well, sheepdogs, aren't they?
Yeah, and these weren't Australian sheepdogs. These were, I don't know what they were, but they were big. They were more like, Russian wolfhounds or something. I mean, they were big dogs. Now they probably passed since we were there that one time, and I visited the mountain more than once, but yeah, I haven't been back now in almost 10 years. It's been since I was last able to visit Wales, and I'm desperate to go. I feel hungry, and I really would love to get over. And I was hoping to go this year and visit Ross, and then together try to shoot enough video that I could create a very sound documentary, not the kind that I really was hoping to produce with the television stations, because obviously I was hoping they would put up more of a budget. And honestly, the sort of thing that I've always wanted to do includes archaeology, more along the lines of what all your all the BHH UK members know as Time Team.
Yeah.
Where at least for 3 days, if not more, if not an actual full-on dig for weeks a weeks long time, that we could pay for archaeology at these sites, because I don't really want to bring them huge publicity without being able to conclusively determine what's there, and then just leave them exposed to the nighthawks, right? You just don't want to lose the proof, since we're really everything depends on proof.
Yeah.
I'm going to pause and let you interject here.
Well, you must have been coming back and forth for a good decade then, by the sound of it.
Yeah, from about I guess from about 2003 to 2013, I think, was the last time I went over. The last time I went over, I went with a girlfriend at the time, and she her family lives near Bristol, so she was she was Welsh, actually, because she had been born in Merthyr Tydfil, Merthyr, and but her family now lived over just across the border near Bristol, outside of Bristol. And so I went with her, and let me just see if I can jog my memory. Hold on. Yeah, and we went to visit Ray Howell, who used to be an archaeologist. He's since retired, but at the
Right.
time, at the time even, he was just retiring. So he'd already been retired for 10 years. I mean, 10 years now, but at the time he had just stepped down. But he used to be at the University of Wales, Newport.
Right.
And I was able to find a King Arthur video that he did.
Oh,
He was involved with. I was able to find that on YouTube.
yeah.
And so I thought, well, maybe he would be a sympathetic ear
Yeah.
to the theories of Allen and Barham, because, as you know, it's so hard to find folks who are sympathetic. And in
Yeah.
fact, I just this week, it's Wednesday now, right? So I think on Monday, I just watched a new video. It's just been out for a week or two from that channel, Cambrian Chronicles,
Right.
about King Arthur. And I think
Right.
it's called, Who Was King Arthur? And whoever this fellow is that runs this channel, he just basically debunks the entire King Arthur legend. Let me call it the King Arthur legend. In other words, his attitude is that the texts that everybody draws from are so questionable,
Yeah.
that we can't know anything for certain about a historical figure. And he alludes to, but does not mention by name, Allen and Barham. And, since Chris Barber also shares the same Arthur, and just differs in particulars about, what happened to him and all the rest. He may be alluding to Barber's theories as well, since they both talk about Arthur II being the son of Moirig and everything else. But so without mentioning any of those folks by name, he just sort of takes the standard BBC line that he's a total myth. That most of what we've heard about him in all these 11th and 12th and 13th century stories is just fiction, which is really irritating when you have seen what I've seen, because I can tell you that in my adventures with Allen and Barham, I have seen stuff that would just blow your mind.
Well,
Because I know for a fact that proof exists. And I've always tried to not be as militant as they are, because I saw that it didn't really serve them well, right?
true.
I mean, they provoked and antagonized the very people whose help they needed, and consequently, they got no help at all. But the proof is there, and it's so frustrating. And I've come to think, after now almost more than 20 years, that perhaps it's just, perhaps no one really wants this to come out.
Yeah. I think that's the bottom line. That's right.
the bottom line may be that, the powers that be, whomever they may be, really don't want any of this to be discovered. And I mean, I've thought about this a lot because I had to think about this when I was pitching my show. And I will tell you that I pitched that show, Hidden History. And, I'll just, let me see if I can, I don't know.
You can't discount those medieval written histories because they describe perfectly how Arthur's body was brought up the River Ogre and the description of the lay of the land there, and then taken to the Cave of Mystery, Coidamuster, and then buried up on the hill. So
now,
isn't it?
Paul, actually, you could help me because Alan never told me where he, what text he got that. Do you know where the text? Because I remember, Alan always made a big point that the burial of Arthur was one of the most prominently chronicled burials in history. But quite honestly, I don't know what text he's been referring to. And we were close, and I was obviously visiting, and we talked. And I mean, I've been to Newcastle. I stayed at their place. So do you happen to know what text it is?
No, I would only be guessing, and I would be guessing at Mallory's Morte Arthur.
No,
It's
Mallory.
not there, is it? Right.
No, because I've read Mallory, and Mallory doesn't, Mallory doesn't talk about the burial at all. So
I'm pretty sure they're talking about two French knights who've retraced the route, and so it must be their record.
yeah, so I think we really need, maybe you can reach out to Bob Morgan, or I don't know who else might be familiar with the texts.
But if we put this live, somebody will mention it in the chat.
Maybe
There's such
someone,
detailed knowledge of people in the group is amazing.
yeah, because it would be nice. I've tried to track down what text it might be. I don't know if it's one of the French texts. It's been years.
French. I think it's two French knights
Yeah.
who just maybe don't know the names, but describe perfectly the lay of the land, which matches Ogmore, the River Ogre.
And they talk about the body, bringing the body in the skiff, and then it coming up the Enwenny, and then and hiding it in the cave. And they also talk about the burial, because I would be interested to find that. I will say that based on my familiarity with Alan Hassel's work, there might be something to it, but I would like to see those texts. I would like to read those texts myself. And those are texts that I'm still to this day unfamiliar with, because I could never get him to say where exactly he had read that, and that, of course, is the great thing about Adrian's Holy Kingdom, and the unfortunate thing about Allen and Barham's self-published books are they, and Ross was trying in his reprints to correct some of that by at least creating indexes and things like that. But Allen and Barham never bothered with bibliographies or sources or anything like that. And that is probably another reason why their books were just dismissed and discredited, because they never could be bothered to share their sources, so no one could check. No one was able to check, and weren't able to verify that, okay, yeah, this is really there. That's a frustrating thing. But I can tell you that in all my visits over there in the early 2000s, and then again in 2012, 13, that I have seen in the ground, as they say, in the land, both on the maps and, just walking around, I have seen proof positive that there is much more to these legends than just myth.
Yeah.
And one of the places that we went to see on my first visit was Minith Baden, and this was part of the mountaintop. And as you can see, these are what Alan thought were definitely burial mounds from a battle that took place on this particular slope. Now, I know that David Mosley, Steve Pohl, Bob Morgan, Tim Lewis, and others have since that time been able to expand the Battle of Minith Baden, or Baden. Let's just call it Baden, because it's not just on the mountain, right? It's spread out for miles around, and some of those excellent videos, drone videos that show the the battle sites and the potential battle sites, the defenses and everything else are just extraordinary. And that's another reason I would love to get back over, because to this day, the conventional line is that, well, there's a number of sites proposed as the historical location of the Battle of Baden, but we can't be sure. And it's always a bunch of bunk, right? Because you actually have to just go look. If you went and looked, you would see, you could have conclusive proof. So these are some of what Alan Barham considers to be burial mounds on the hill. This is a view from the top of the hill. This is the roadway at the top. And these are the remains of it runs all along the hill. These are the remains of, berms that they put up at the top so that the British would be on this side here, and the Saxons would have been coming up the hill. And so off to the right of the picture here, across the road, further down the fields, are the field is the area that in Welsh, the field has the field name, the Field of the Tents, I believe. Alan told me. So that was where they believe that Arthur encamped, certainly in the night before this particular battle. This is a close-up of some of the remaining defenses at the top of the hill, and you can see the sweeping views out, to the opposite hill on the other side. It's another close-up and angle looking the other way, and you can see people just walk across the top of this here.
The entrenchments.
Yeah, the entrenchments. And of course, they're worn away after 1,500 years. I mean, they're just really like 2 or 3 feet tall. That's all they remain now. But years ago, they must have been at least 5 or 6 feet tall, so that a man could, hide behind it and also just, sweep over.
And they must have had a lot of stakes and things, because that was the Roman way of putting javelins in a triangle, wasn't it? For a march.
Right. It's quite possible the wood would be all gone by now, of course. Yeah. So this is another view back to the right. You can just see the top down here in the corner right of one of the remaining entrenchments.
Yeah.
Again, across the entrenchment out to the opposite hill. And you can't quite see the slope in video. And unfortunately, because this is already, this visit was 20 years ago, almost now. Computers have changed in 20 years. I've had to upgrade. So I have lost the digital copies of my videos, and I haven't yet been able to, these were shot on a little DV cam. And so they're little mini DV tapes, and I have yet to go back since I realized I couldn't find the original raw video files anymore.
Yeah.
I have yet to go back and locate the tapes, which have been in storage and all the rest of that, and get the machines that I need, which I also just got out of storage last week, to be able to redigitize those tapes.
Yeah.
So that's another view. Go ahead.
I was going to say, what struck me when I visited was that it wasn't as steep, etc., as a lot of places in Wales. But then it couldn't have been, because you'd have to have enticed the invaders up a hill. And if it was ridiculously steep, they just wouldn't go up there, would they?
Right. Now, I mean, we can't tell from this angle, unfortunately, but in the video that I took, which unfortunately I don't have, you can see that this particular spot, which is not when David Mosley, I think, and some of the others went to visit with Ross. I think Ross was part of that visit to the other battle sites that they had located. It was not this hill, because I did not see this hill in any of their drone video or in any of Ross's video. So I don't know why they didn't visit this, but because this is pretty steep. I mean, Ross would have huffed and puffed to climb up if he had climbed up the way the Saxons had climbed up, and probably any of us would. But down at the bottom too, there's some trees with singular burial mounds under them,
right,
that have grown up on the at the bottom. And Alan always argued that he thought those were must have been special people, not to have been buried like in a mass grave, as we see here, right? So
you could probably hit the sheep with a bow and arrow from that embankment that were in the picture.
Oh yeah, there were sheep all around. There were sheep to the left, right of us, and everywhere. They just grazed the whole hill. But I mean, better that sheep are up there than that a farmer is actually plowing.
That's right, yeah. But from the top of that hill, you could probably hit the sheep that were in the photograph.
You mean
that's how far an arrow would have gone?
Yeah, there was. Hold on, let me see if I can find the one you're referring to. Well, these down here, you mean?
Yeah, that one there. You could probably hit them from that distance.
Maybe that's it. Could be, because photographs are deceptive, and so
as long as you didn't have to be accurate.
Yeah. So anyway, these are some of the shots that I have from Minith Baden, and then this is from when I visited Ogmore, and of course this is the Enwenny, which runs all the way up to St. Peter's, or the tributaries run all the way up there.
I think the main one is the Ogwa, OGWR, and the Ueni joins it just further up.
Okay.
But they both become one there at that point, by the look of it.
Yeah. So, but this is right by the castle.
Yeah, it is right by the castle. Yeah.
Here you have, this is where we went to visit the castle. And as you saw in the video, there's the replica of the the Arthmael stone that was found, but this is a replica, and then these are just some beauty shots. But this is, Alan always took great pleasure in recounting the story of the young soldier who rides across the river here and splashes Arthur, and Arthur is very, doesn't get upset at him, and just he loved to tell me that. He said, yeah, Arthur was sitting on his horse and someone came riding over here. But again, I don't, he never said where he heard that. So that was, those are some shots. And of course, this would have been the river that the skiff came up with the body, because also the cave is further up in the hills, the Cwr, the mystery. And of course, that's Tintern. And that's when we were out, we went on our way to Mathern, because I, of course, videoed Alan in Mathern, and we have that video in British Hidden Histories, where he talks about digging up the king, or I don't think they had to dig him up, but they just uncovered the grave, and twice since he was buried in the church there.
Yeah, and that's part of the proof, isn't it? That the skull had a head wound.
Right.
That is recorded.
Right. So the thing about Arthur, of course, is that, and here's the plaque inside the church, and it's hard to read in this particular picture because of the reflections, but it talks about his battle, and it talks about having the coffin being dug up and then reburied. And and then these are some shots you can see. This is I'll open this up.
Yeah,
these
I recognize what it is.
This is the core at St. Illid's, which it's hard to see, but there's the hill, and of course it's all overgrown now with trees. Yeah,
it's very hard to take a photograph to express the donut shape and the height and width of it. Very difficult.
And I shot these from in. I'm a videographer, and I'm much better now, but when I was back 20 years ago, I didn't really know what I was doing when I was just taking pictures. So these pictures are not very good. This one turned out really well, and I used this as sort of the logo for my whole hidden history project.
Right.
And then of course, you can say, and this is it. Sorry, we switch places here, but these are from the Merthyr Mawr stone collection. So these were the stones that were out in the shed, and you can see there's the stone for Paulus. You can just read a little bit here, Paul Philly, and then who knows, we could, if someone really cared, they could recover more of the etchings on these. Here too is another, you can see the wheel.
Yeah. I just saw a picture of that cross in a stone in, where was it? In America somewhere. They're calling it a Templar's cross, but it's exactly that shape.
Oh, yeah, well, it's definitely, this was a grave outside the church here, which I think this is Iltid's now, not Illid's.
Right.
I think I jumped, but this was a grave outside of that.
Yeah, so you can see the age in that one, can't you?
Right, and Alan was sure that it might be somebody significant. And there, of course, he is in front of St. Telos. It might have been Telos.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
there's
I'm-
Alan years
Yeah.
ago. And I haven't heard. Have you heard anything? Did they get him home?
As far as I know, he's still in the care home on respite. 2 weeks of respite, it'll be a second week, I imagine.
Oh, brother.
That church is the one in Merthyr Mawr, and so the stone that you were talking about would be in the shed, open to the public and the weather, apart from the
Right.
roof, right behind the church. So you can just go there any time of the day and take a look at those stones.
So there's that, and then of course we went to visit Caermelin. Now I know that you talked with Keith Price,
Yeah.
who has a theory that the mountain called Pen Arthur, which is out his way, I think somewhere, I don't know,
He just called it Penn Castle.
Penn Castle.
Yeah.
He's I guess going to propose that that might be the site of Camelot. And you know, since none of these sites have been excavated, I guess we, you know, at this point we can't necessarily know. But 20 years ago, Alan felt that Caermelin, the Yellow Fort, was probably the site for Caermelin. And so we went to visit, and here you can see some of the buried foundations. And this is all right next to the farm. I'll jump ahead. You and I have chatted, but here's the farm. And these are the fields immediately adjacent to the farm. So I know you said that further away, there are some exposed foundations that the public can walk into from another entrance.
From the Traveller's Rest.
From the Traveller's Rest, right.
Yeah, I just didn't realize they might be the same place. I'll have to go there again and take a look in relation to farming.
I don't know. Alan knew the farmers here. And so we actually drove up and chatted with the lady, the wife, and then, you know, got permission to wander around the site. And so this, of course, was him. This is backed out a little bit, so you can see how large this hill is. I mean, photographs exaggerate a little bit, but you know, you can see the steps for that. I mean, there is definitely stuff that's buried. Now that's, oops, let me go back. That's just looking off towards the river, and you can see that the views from the site are really commanding. So
yeah,
definitely, I mean, there was definitely something important here for centuries. Now, whether it goes all the way back to the Dark Ages, I don't know, but no one's ever done an excavation. Again, you can just see all the hillocks, and where there would be, you know, ruins underneath.
And that's right above the fields in Rubina, suburb of Cardiff, North Cardiff. And the fields in Rubina was supposedly where the horses were grazed. And the name is the clue to that. I forget what it is in Welsh, but it's in one of the books, isn't it?
Yeah, it
and
is.
It's right below where they would have grazed. And that was the photograph of Cardiff city centre.
Right, they're there. I think you told me what these buildings were here.
The one that's closest, that one, that's the government building in Llanishen, due to be knocked down. And the one to the left of that is the tall one in the centre of Cardiff on Greyfriars or Blackfriars, one or the other, Greyfriars. And you can see the Millennium Stadium to the right.
And that's this here.
That's
right?
the Principality Stadium, Cardiff
Yeah.
Arms Park.
Yeah. And
And
of
then-
course, when on this particular visit, I was staying over here at the Jury's Hotel.
Yeah.
Right
And
here.
that headland beyond is Penarth, Head of Arthur.
Right here.
Yep, exactly there.
This was the street in Cardiff where Bob Sunman, whom I know that Ross got up to visit, but Bob was closely allied with Allen and Barham for a period of time. And during the time of my visit, he was, I don't care about this castle. I know it's a famous castle that they all,
It's a tourist.
yeah, it's a
of
tourist
castle.
attraction. And we went, they took me there, but it
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah, it's featured in a lot of films. And that was the one where I mentioned Oliver Cromwell, Oliver Watkins, I think he was
at the
born.
Griffin. Yeah.
I don't know if he was born in the Griffin, but he's born in Lisvane, which is the suburb you're at there.
We went in and had something to eat at the pub. And then this was one of the, I can't read the sign from here, but this was one of the churches that.
I think it's right opposite the pub.
And then this is also, I don't know, it's out of order, but this is also in the, this is the Bodvok stone. And this is also, I think, in the Merthyr collection. So,
Or is it in Margam?
well, I mean, sorry, yeah, the Margam, it's in the back there with all the other stones, because you can see the other ones behind it.
Yeah.
And
I think that might be in the Stone Museum at Margam. I'm not sure.
and then here, of course, is the stone when it was in place. There's a picture of it.
Yeah, well, that's impressive.
I would guess that that's still there. And then this was the stone behind it. And we're not going to take the time to read it now, but
I think one of the American groups came over and did a lot of work on reading the stones in Margam.
probably, but I mean, it's highly likely. Of course, we Americans are fast. Now, I am of Welsh descent. I do have Welsh blood in me, which makes me feel more attached, I suppose. But
Yeah.
the stories themselves are enough to, I think.
I think they were a religious group, so their angle was to find the 10 tribes and the proof through the language, the Coilbren and whatnot.
Right.
So that's why they were over here interested. He's a smart-looking animal.
That's one of Bob's dogs, I think. Remember, I think we took, and then of course this is
Llandaff Cathedral.
Llandaff Cathedral, which I shot. We've got a little video of me inside that I shot, and that was closer to 212 when I came back. And
I've seen it, and you incorporated Baden as well.
oh, that's
I'll
right.
dig that one out.
I think I might too, because there's the window, and of course, it's just so frustrating to me that that the Welsh, at least 100 years ago anyway, and I don't know how old these stained glass windows are, but they're obviously 19th century.
Yeah, they're definitely in the Victorian era.
Right.
Some were replaced in the 1930s, but not them. They're older.
And they understood these connections, but they guard them very closely, right, to their chest. They don't. And then, of course, the academics, even at the University of Wales, are all principally put in place by the English, and they don't seem to have any interest in really going out and investigating the popular, I'll use the term, the popular folklore since that's what they would call it. But it's just it's criminal, really, because it as Ross would say all the time, you know, these here we go. So now we're down near Nash Point, and this is just the estuary, but I'm gonna get and this is now I believe this is this picture may be out of this is a great boat burial here. I'm not sure if this is now at Nash Point.
Yeah, that's Nash Point. You can see the lighthouse to the right.
Okay, so it is Nash Point. Then this is the great boat burial that Ross visited, you know, and he's made a video of being down at Nash Point, and he was at this site. But what he did not go see was further up the rise along the cliffs here, and we'll see this. You can see it right here, but I'll show you a better picture in a second. There's Alan standing on what he believes is the grave of Bedwyr, one of Arthur's knights. And we'll get a better view of it in a second. But so Alan's standing there, and this is a wider shot so you can see. So there's the remains of the grave. That's Bob Sunman standing and staring off to sea, and there's Alan on top of it. So you get some idea. Now, this was already now almost 20 years ago, so Lord knows if you could even find this.
Yeah, I think a couple, Bob Morgan and a couple of others, were looking for it in January.
So I mean, maybe this will help. I can send you these pictures, Paul, so you can share them with Bob.
Okay.
And maybe there's Alan, just
lovely photo, lovely shirt.
Yeah, he looks good in blue, huh?
Yeah.
And there's Bob. There's a good shot of Bob with his dogs 20 years ago.
Wow.
Now, sadly, of course, they had a falling out now. But anyway, and then now we're back in Butte Park, and this is, as you saw in the video.
Yeah, the original St. Mary's Church, maybe.
Yeah, it's quite possible. The remains of the church, and then just some shots of those. The light was very pretty that day. So those
that was very enlightening. I hadn't seen those before. I've seen the Blackfriars.
Right, which is just a few steps away.
Yeah, and calling that modern. And how old is that?
What, the Blackfriars?
Yeah, the Blackfriars.
Yeah. Well, that's why, I mean, and there's that, like the and this is really, all right around here.
Yeah, and that really shows the possibility of that area being an island, because that's the docks feeder on the right, a canal that's been made. But originally the river was moved by Isambard Kingdom Brunel, so that he could build Cardiff General Station on a marsh. So they moved the river from one side of the stadium over to the other side. And the proof of that, apart from the drawings from the Victorian era, is the name of the streets. You've got Key Street, Womanby Street, which is Icelandic. Womanby is Viking, but the Key was the other side, and that's inland now, if you like, away from the river. But that picture there does show that it could have been the island of orchards.
Apples.
Orchards.
Right.
Yeah. Avalon come out of the name of Avalach. Right. Which is, I think that's where they were taking Tudrig, wasn't it?
That's where they were. He was trying to get to, but he passed away. close to where they built the church,
Yeah.
where he's been ultimately buried. So
Yeah. 'Cause I used to think that the island of Avalon might have been steep home or maybe flat home out in the estuary. But having read more about it now, it's definitely more likely to be Cooper's Field, Butte Park, exactly on the pictures there.
I think this is, yeah, okay. So we've gone through the pictures here anyway. Yeah. Okay. So listen, we've got one more thing we've got time for today. And because we have to get you off to your next one. But as we talked about, I shot a lot of video. I have a lot of video. This video I did not shoot myself, but Alan shared it with me years ago. And this is actually a snippet because, again, as we know, oh, hold on a minute. Let me stop sharing. Well, actually, wait, I might as well just keep sharing since I think you can see me as well, right? You have,
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, because, of my reluctance to share specifics that might excite people, I'm not a big fan of that because I want the proof to be legitimized, and that means getting archaeologists. And in all my efforts to get my series produced, and everybody turned me down. I had a lot of partners at the time who were well established, but Nat Geo, History, Discovery, they all said, well, they weren't interested. And I think principally it was because also around that time, that news journalist had done that show about Al Capone's vault, in which he was going to do, it was a live show on air in which he was going to open up this vault that had once been owned by Al Capone. And he did it on air and the vault was empty. So it was a complete bust. The show was just, kind of like a failure in that there was no payoff. And so that was some of the feedback that I would get. Well, we can't take a risk that you're not going to find anything. And then of course, archaeology is expensive and time consuming, and they never want to spend a lot of money or spend a lot of time creating these shows, which is why when you see a show that today that goes, where a host or a presenter goes looking for the Grail, they all just rehash the same story they've been telling for 20 years, right? They never go to any place new. They wind up visiting France. They go to, if they're looking for the Ark, they maybe go to France. They always go to Ethiopia these days and shoot outside, again, St. Mary's Church. So St. Mary gets around. She has a lot of churches, but anyway, back in the day, because of their commitment, their energy, and their interest and their connections, they had a friend who worked very closely with them, Alan Hassel, who had developed a device principally to be used for searching for lost artifacts in the surf, so on, in the shallow waters, near the sand, or in a low stream, I guess. But he went with them to quite a few sites, and you and I have chatted before, and you've seen his visit to the Cave of the Cross, which we're not going to show today. but we will show this site, which I hope to be somewhat obscure. And I will move this over, and this.
Big. It's big. This is like a mountain of gold, but then there ain't is a treasure there. There's a story about a treasure of a mountain of gold. Is this it? Everywhere. This is... Incredible, incredible. I've never ever experienced anything like this in my life. It's unreal.
We aren't after King Arthur, are we?
Oh, well, if it's King Arthur, what's he got around him?
So anyway, that's pretty impressive video.
You're telling me, yeah.
And I mean, I guess it's a little risky, but we'll share it anyway. And yeah, I just wish we're going to wrap this up. I think we have to. You've got to get on to your next one, and I've got to get to work. But as it's still morning here in the U.S. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I really, my ardent desire is to get over and to, go out with the team. And over the years, I have enlisted a lot of professionals, because I know that although Alan and Barham unfortunately managed to alienate many of them, we need them. So, I have struck up friendships with various archaeologists, and also some of the technologists who would do like whose business is ground penetrating radar and all that sort of stuff. And it's just a function of money. We just really need somehow we need to raise the hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to undertake these explorations. And then, of course, with some of these sites, because Alan and Barham, WB brought attention to them, they've now been made scheduled monuments, which would also mean that we would have to plead with the authorities to get permission to do anything, to investigate, because, well, this might be a good way to come back to the point that I failed to make earlier, but I think after 20 plus years of being a part of their researches and getting over and trying to help and trying to get American help involved, and finding myself stymied even over here by people who's expressed really no interest. I mean, they continue to do these pointless, stupid history, quote unquote, history shows where someone goes out and looks at sites and never finds anything, but they'll just string you along for 50 minutes and then well, we didn't find anything, so but whereas we could definitely find something, but no one seems to have an interest. And the point I wanted to make earlier is that after 20 years, I really think that the powers that are in charge, really don't want this stuff to be uncovered. Now, they they've got additional reasons for concern with migration and immigration and everything. They probably don't want to stir the pot when it comes to national feeling. I think the take seems to be in archaeology these days, and anthropology, and what you get from watching most of these sanctioned documentaries about the Dark Ages and everything is that, oh, there was no great incursion by the Saxons. The line seems to be now it was a gentle migration, and because we can't find sites for great battles.
Yeah,
and they
right.
don't go, they don't look in Baden. We can't find these places where these great conflicts that they write about took place. So they must all be just made up stories, to bolster people, and they couldn't have happened. So again, they just call into question the old records. And I think academia, wants to foster this idea. Why can't we all just be nice to each other and get along? And so they try to squash native feeling. The whole anti-Brexit move was just, we're all just one big happy family.
Yeah.
And why can't we all just intermingle and all the rest of that jazz? So I think there's that movement that just works against trying to actually prove that the past actually happened.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
I think the mindset now of academia is, let's just ignore the past as best we can. I mean, I don't know what history teachers must do in academia now. They don't get out in the field. They're probably just happy, talking about texts that they that they can now just label as mythological or legendary, or these are just the stories that our ancestors told each other, but they don't have to have any basis in truth. Or if they do have some basis in truth, it must be so far buried into the past that, we can only guess what their origins might be. So I really think that this project requires a lot of money, and then we would really need some influential people to help.
Yeah, definitely.
Support it, because I'm not even sure money by itself would be enough to carry out all the work that it requires and that it deserves. But never say never.
That's right. You might bump into.
And never stop. And I'm never going to stop as long as there's breath in me and energy and strength. And I'm definitely going to get over there and hopefully, Bob Morgan, Tim Lewis, and David Mosley, Steve Pohl, we can get all these guys together. You, if you're interested in,
I'll be interested. I'll be there.
And we can go out and film some of these sites. Maybe if we can get enough money together and we don't have any restrictions necessarily, I could reach out to some friends that I know, and whom we'd have to pay for, and we could get some real genuine equipment that no one, the results of which no one could deny, and make some progress here in proving that Allen and Barham and Ross, God bless him, we're on to something, and that the past is real.
Yeah.
The past is true. And as William Faulkner would have said, the past is never past.
Beautiful words. Thank you very much, Paul. Wonderful sentiments there. And that was very interesting, highly illuminating, entertaining, and everybody's going to love it. I know they are.
Well, I look forward to it. Good luck editing. We'll have to do this again, Okay.
Oh, definitely. My pleasure. Thank you very much for your time and joining us today.
It was a pleasure, Paul.
Cheers.
Bye.